The palace hallways had never felt so hollow, their towering arches echoing a silence that clung to every stone. As Sheikh Hamdan walked through them with slow, measured steps, the guards and attendants lowered their gaze, not out of duty, but out of the quiet shock of seeing the redness in his eyes. It wasn't anger, it wasn't exhaustion, it was something much deeper, something that pressed into the soul of anyone who looked too closely. But even with eyes that betrayed a storm, his heart remained painfully, stubbornly silent. He stepped out onto the open terrace where the evening sky stretched like a wounded canvas, streaked with bruised gold and pale lavender. The breeze tried to comfort him, brushing against his face with the softness only nature could offer, yet he remained unmoved. His breath was steady, his posture unbroken, but the shadows beneath his eyes spoke of battles fought quietly, alone, and for far too long. It was strange. He had always been the prince whose emotions danced through poetry, yet tonight his heart refused to speak even a single word. He leaned against the cool marble railing, pressing his palms onto its surface as though grounding himself against a truth he could no longer outrun. The world saw him as the man who carried the desert's fire within him, always radiant, always resilient. But tonight, the flames had dimmed. He felt as though the weight of 1,000 unsaid truths rested on his shoulders, truths that clawed at his chest, begging to break free, but his heart remained locked, frozen by a silence he did not choose. Behind him, the palace continued with its royal rituals, footsteps, whispers, distant doors closing, but none of it could pierce the stillness inside him. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't composing verses in his mind, nor planning tomorrow's duties, nor dreaming of the wide skies he loved. His thoughts drifted like thick smoke, shapeless and suffocating. He had always believed that the strongest storms were the ones he could write out of his system. But this storm offered no words, no meaning, only a quiet ache that reddened his eyes and muted his soul. He closed his eyes, hoping that maybe, in the darkness behind his lids, he would find clarity. Instead he found memories, sharp, vivid, unforgiving. A moment he wished he could erase, a decision he wished he could rewrite, a truth he wished he had never learned. It hovered there, just out of reach, taunting him. He had spent years mastering the art of emotional discipline, yet this single moment shattered that mastery like glass. When he opened his eyes again, the horizon had darkened, as if the sky itself sensed his turmoil. The dusk settled over him like a heavy cloak, amplifying the red around his eyes. But still, he did not speak. Not to himself, not to the wind, not to the memory haunting him. What good were words when the pain they attempted to describe was beyond language? What good was a confession when the heart behind it was frozen? He heard footsteps approaching, but he didn't turn. He didn't need to. Only one person walked with such gentle hesitation, his closest confidant, the one who understood him without needing explanations. They stood beside him in silence, not daring to break the stillness he carried like shattered glass. Perhaps they sensed that he was a single breath away from falling apart, and that the wrong word could be the final fracture. But even then, he offered no explanation. His confidant glanced at him, saw the redness in his eyes, the tightness in his jaw, the way his hands trembled just slightly on the railing. They wanted to ask what had happened, to urge him to speak, to share the burden he carried. Yet something in his presence warned them that tonight was not a night for questions. It was a night where the heart spoke only through silence. As the silence stretched, the city lights began to flicker awake below them, tiny stars scattered across the earth. He looked at them with a weariness he rarely allowed himself to feel. Each light represented someone moving through their life with hope, joy, struggle, purpose. But tonight, he felt detached from all of it, as if he were watching the world from behind a thick wall of glass. The wind shifted, catching the edge of his robe, but even its gentle pull couldn't lift the heaviness inside him. He blinked, and fresh warmth touched his eyes, tears he refused to let fall, tears that burned but remained unshed. He had always been strong enough to guide others, but tonight he couldn't guide himself. The heart he used to trust so deeply. The night deepened around him like a curtain, folding over the palace in layers of velvet darkness. Sheikh Hamdan remained on the terrace long after his confidant stepped away, as though he needed the solitude to understand the ache pulsing within him. The silence inside his heart had not lifted, but it had changed, softened, as if preparing itself to speak when the moment was right. His red eyes stung with unspilled truth, yet his soul felt a fraction less suffocated than before. He finally let himself sink onto one of the terrace benches, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped as though trying to hold the scattered pieces of himself together. He wasn't a man unfamiliar with pain. Life, leadership, and loss had shaped him. But this pain was different. It was not sharp, not loud, not dramatic. It was quiet, heavy, the kind that pressed inward instead of outward, the kind that didn't yell, it whispered relentlessly in the hollow places of the heart. As he stared at the distant dunes beyond the city lights, memories resurfaced again, this time gentler, like waves brushing the shore after a storm. He saw moments he wished he could reclaim, words he didn't say, choices he delayed, silences that cost him more than he realized. For the first time, he understood that the silence in his heart wasn't emptiness, it was grief. Grief for things he had lost, and grief for parts of himself he had ignored in service of duty, perfection, and strength. A soft breeze drifted past, carrying with it the faint scent of the desert night, warm sand, fading heat, a hint of musk from distant stables. It grounded him, reminding him that no matter how heavy his emotions felt, the world around him continued its quiet rhythm. The stars shifted, the dunes breathed, and life moved. Perhaps, he thought, his heart was simply learning a new rhythm too, one he hadn't expected, one he didn't yet understand. His confidant gently placed a hand on his shoulder, not offering solutions, not offering comfort, just presence. And for the first time that night, he felt a tiny crack in the silence inside him. Not enough to release the pain, but enough to remind him he wasn't completely alone.